Hey, how's it going, PokeMoshPit? This is SK from SkProductions56, bringing you an OU battle between myself and longtime mate Ravenboy. Last time I fought Ravenboy and an embarrassing 6-0 victory myself, but I can assure you this match is far, far more interesting, especially towards the end. So let's get underway. Raven leads off with Tyranitar, and I lead off with Jirachi. Knowing that his Tyranitar is probably specially based since I've fought it before, I know I have little to fear, so I take this turn to set up my Rain and stop his Sandstorm from affecting the rest of my team. He sends in Skarmory, not wanting to overpredict, I go for a Thunder to try and get some damage into it, but he sends in his Dugtrio, which is some nice prediction, thus absorbing my Thunder and trapping my Jirachi and hitting me with very powerful Earthquakes. Seeing as damage, I'm quite certain it's not carrying a Choice Band, since this Jirachi has almost no defensive EVs, so I was expecting a bit more damage there. So it's probably carrying a Focus Sash or some other item. I opt for Psychic since I am pretty much trapped and can't switch out and just get some damage into it, while he then opts for Earthquake, which then KOs my Jirachi, leaving the score at an early 5 versus 6. I then send in my Weezing, which can wall pretty much anything this Dugtrio has to throw at it. And while he sends in a Fortress, I go for the safe Will-O-Wisp here, which burns the Fortress, which could just increase residual damage. Even though Rain is going to reduce its power up for Flamethrower, which is going to do awesome damage, just because of his 4 times weakness to fire. But because of the Rain, it doesn't actually KO it, and unfortunately he also carries Citrus Berry, which restores his HP a fair bit. And he gets up 1 layer of spikes, which is going to be a pain, but I have to live with it. Predicting he'll switch to a counter, I switch out my Weezing into Magnezone, which carries a Choice Scarf, which is pretty cool, and he sends in a Shuckle. So taking advantage of the Rain, I use Thunder, which is going to have a 100% chance to hit, which hits this Shuckle for pretty huge damage. This is a clever play by Raven, as he opts for Sand Tomb, which is now trapping my Magnezone and not letting me retreat, which now gives him free reign to send in his Dugtrio to easily revenge my Scarfed, and thus trap into Thunder Magnezone. So that is pretty annoying. Magnezone pretty much getting wasted there. So that leaves the score at 4 versus 6. I then send in Weezing again, much the same. He can't really damage me, so then instead of opting for Willow, which is a bit too predictable, I opt for Flamethrower, which will now KO this Shuckle now that the rain has stopped. That's leveling the score a little bit to 4 versus 5. He sends in Empoleon, and I obviously don't want to take any stab special attacks here, so I send in Umbreon to wall anything, but he goes for Aquamarine, which leads me to believe this is a Toxic Stalling Empoleon. So there we go. He goes for Toxic, which is what I expected, but obviously Synchronized doesn't work since Empoleon's a Steel type and Toxic doesn't affect it. I then go for Curse to try and set up to pass these curses onto something that's a bit more useful, but unfortunately he reminds me that he has a Skarmory, which is just going to blow me away and render my setting up useless. Knowing that Whirlwind is about to hit me, I don't bother button passing, I just opt for a Wish to just recover any entry hazard damage. He then sets up his Stealth Rocks, which is a good play. What happens next? Knowing that he's going to Whirlwind, I just opt for Payback, since there's not really much else I can do at this point, which does absolutely nothing. He then Whirlwinds me out and sends in my Togekiss, which isn't so bad, even though this is a Hustle Kiss and is the intended recipient of all those curses. I do still carry somewhat decent special attack and can probably 2-hit KO this Skarmory with Flamethrower, so it's not that bad for me. Raven, obviously predicting special attack, sends in his Dugtrio, probably expecting Thunderbolt, but unfortunately for him I have Flamethrower, which easily KOs Dugtrio, leaving the score at 4 versus 4. He then sends in the Tyranitar, and I know I can survive even Tyranitar special attacks since they're not that powerful, and I don't have any special defensive EVs, but innately Togekiss is pretty bulky. I then go for the Hustle Brick Break, which does huge damage, which is fantastic for me. Unfortunately a bit shy of KO there. Obviously this Togekiss is built to have a few curses passed to it, thus boosting its attack to a more respectable level, but it's still enough to hit KO with extreme speed, then leaving the score at 4 versus 3 in my favour. Sandstorm whittling away my HP there. He then sends in Empoleon to scare me away. Not wanting to relinquish Togekiss just yet, I send back in Umbreon to basically wall everything he has, although the entry hazards just roll me, so basically I know that Umbreon's just doomed to die to Sandstorm, Toxic, Protect Storming and Surf, so basically it's just a waste, so I'm just going to have to relinquish it and get a free switch into something a bit more appropriate to take down this Empoleon. That levels the score to 3 versus 3, I think, yes. I send in Metagross to try and set up, but unfortunately for me, I pretty much wasted a turn there setting up agility, since at this point in the match I'd forgot that Dugtrio had been KO'd by that off-the-cuff flamethrower, so I pretty much wasted a turn getting hit by Surf there, so instead of KOing with Earthquake and only taking 1 Surf, I have to take 1 Earthquake to bring this thing down to Torrent range, and then eat a Torrent Surf and die. So that is pretty poor play by myself, not remembering that Dugtrio was no longer in play, but happens to the best of us, so there we go. That brings the score to 2-3 in Raven's favour, which is a pain. I send in Togekiss again to finish it off with an E-Speed, but he opts to protect and get more leftover recovery and whittle away my HP to Sandstorm, which is annoying. And unfortunately for me, he gets a double protect, which then blocks my E-Speed again and makes me take even more turns of Sandstorm damage. I'm a bit afraid that the Togekiss will not be fast enough since it's carrying a speed hindering nature, so out of necessity I'll for E-Speed again, but he predicts me nicely and switches into Skarmory, which is obviously going to take E-Speeds all day. And unfortunately I go down to Sandstorm damage, thus leaving it at it's 1 versus 3, so I'm in a pretty tight spot here. But it's not so bad, because I have the Weezing, which can take the attacks of Skarmory and Fortress pretty much all day long, because I'm going to burn this Skarmory, which pretty much makes his attacking abilities useless. But I'm convinced that the Empoleon is just going to come in and be faster and slap me in the face with a Stab, Torrent, Surf. But I'm just going to blabber on a bit through this bit of a stalling phase. Neither of us realize at this point that it's probable that, well, I'm of the opinion at this point that Empoleon's just going to come in, be faster, and just surf me, and it's going to be game over. I'm pretty much convinced the game is over right now. But as we go on in this stalling phase, we do a bit of research and we discover that Empoleon and Weezing actually have the same base speed stats. So it's like, oh, okay, it's going to come down to who has the most IVs in speed. Because obviously neither of us have speed IVs, because I mean only really odd, like late game agility Empoleons invest speed, and obviously no Weezing in the world has speed on it. So it's going to come down to who has the most IVs in speed. Now obviously we both know how to EV train, and both of us know how to IV breed, but we don't really care about the speed IVs in our Pokemon. Neither of us remember what our speed IVs are. So it's going to come down to this final turn where it's going to be who has the most IVs. So here we go. Both of those two, Skarmory and Forest, has gone down to Weezing special attacks. So in comes Empoleon for the climactic moment. And there we go, and that's what happens. And Weezing is faster, to my astonishment. But it gets better. After the match, we see who obviously was faster, and it turns out that we had a speed tie, which is just miraculous. We both have 22 IVs in speed and no EVs, leaving us both at, I think it's 147 speed, which is just incredible considering the chances of both having the same IV with no EV investment. But great battle, Raven. Hopefully we can have, I don't know if we can match that for epicness, but good battle. Hope you enjoyed it, MoshPit viewers, and if you liked what you see, check out my channel, and I'll see you next time. See ya.